Hey, what's good, YouTube? It's your boy Evan today, and with another video. So we're gonna talk about in this video about what I've learned from being 18 years old to being 22 years old. So 4 years ago, I was 18 years old. Well, I turned 18 on November 18th of 2021. And what I've learned about being 18, like I was still in high school. I was still a teenager, but I was an adult. Like the legal age to be an adult is 18 years old. And I've learned that when you're like 18 years old, you're still a teenager, but you're like a young adult. And when I was 18, I had some behavior issues at home, and I was still a senior and all this stuff. And I was still like going through, ending my high school years. But when I turned 19 years old, oh my gosh, being 19 in 2023 was a pretty bad year. I'm not gonna lie, I was cyberbullied a lot. Like I said, I was in group chats with a bunch of people, and I was cyberbullied. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was 19 years old, I was picked on by some 20-year-old guys, and I was picked on by some people like me, 19, and I was also bullied by some younger people and on the internet. But like I said, one thing I've learned about, I'm gonna talk about being 18 and 19. So when I was 18 years old, I was graduating high school, living my life, and I was working a part-time job at Woodward Corner Market at the flower shop. I was working an Encore flower shop with a lady named Patty, and I worked there. And I had a lady help me how to unpack flowers, and I was doing Instagram lives a lot. And when I was 18 years old, and then I was riding my bike a lot. I was just talking to a lot of people. And I talked to a lot of people around my age. And I was at hooping a lot. I was at 18. I was young. But then we're going to talk about 19. 19 years old, I was still a teenager. I was still a teen. And I'm not going to lie, being 19 was hard. Being 18 was hard. But 19 was hard. I had a lot of problems at home, you know. You know why? Because people really, really mean to me on social media. Like, I was cyberbullied. I had people call me names. I don't want to say what people I don't want to say what people really called me or what they talked about me for. Like I've had people be rude to me, being disrespectful, and just calling me names. Like when I was 19 years old in 2023, I had a 20-year-old guy, and I had people my age at 19. I had people disrespect me on group chats, on lives, and just be mean. And I had an 18-year-old person and some 17-year-olds, even some 16-year-olds, even some like maybe 15-year-olds just being rude to me and being disrespectful. And then another guy made a rumor about me that I raped someone, even though I didn't. And he was younger than me. And that's why being 18 and 19 was it was hard. But yeah. And then we're going to talk about what it was like being 20. When I was 20 years old, I was just, working a job, working part-time at the flower shop. And then when I was 20, I got another job at Woodward Corner Market. I had 2 jobs, working at the flower shop and working at Woodward Corner Market pushing carts. So I'm going to explain why being 20 was kind of harder. It was hard, but then it gets better. Let me explain it. So my coworker Brian, he's a good guy. I like him. His dad was having a hard time, so he was always like crappy with me because he was always like in a bad mood. But his dad unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. God bless his soul. It was just because when he was crabby. And then one thing I learned about being at the flower shop from like 18 to 20, it was not like some days were long and some days were short. And then when we had nothing to do, like I had to wait until 3 o'clock until my mom could pick me up for work. So when I got done work early, Patty said, you're not going to leave work until your mom picking up your brother. And that's why I'm glad I don't work at the flower shop as much, because some days are long, some days are short. And it's just, yeah, that's one thing I was doing at 20, working at a flower shop. And some days were busy, like Easter was busy, Christmas was busy, and Mother's Day was really busy. And I just personally had our time. And actually, Patty taught me like life skills to be at a job. And, basically that's what I did. And then I think it was just hard. And then some days were short, some days were long. It's just simple, hard work. I mean, it wasn't hard, but, the flowers wasn't a thing. And like I said, when you're young and when you're that young, nobody is going to like their first job. Like I said, you might work at McDonald's and just not like your job. A job's a job. You work at McDonald's, you work at Wendy's, or you work as a security guard, or like a security guard at a door place, or you just watch cameras. It's a job. No one's happy with their job. Some people have a job just to make money. Some people have a job so they don't want to be bored. And that's the thing why I had this flower shop, because, it was a part-time job. Whatever. But then from February, I was at trade school learning grounds maintenance. I learned that, so when I did, basically when I was from October 2024 to February 2025, I was in trade school. So what I did is I did a grounds maintenance program. So basically what I did is I learned how to cut grass, learn how to mulch, and use a zero-turn mowers. But I'm not gonna lie, our instructor was not very nice, and he was and explain what happened later. So basically, some of the classmates were not very friendly. And then another thing I've learned, so basically mulch, learn how to use a weed whip, and learn how to use blades. And that's one thing. When I was 21. So from when I turned 20 years old, I turned 21 November. So, so when I was 21, it was still a trade school. My parents drove 2 hours to celebrate my birthday from Madison Heights to Kalamazoo area in Michigan's MCTI. So we went out to dinner, posted on Instagram, blessed to be 21. And I was just at trade school, learning a trade and doing trade stuff. But I was nervous about passing my first term, but then I passed my first term, and then I got my second term. Second term was not what I expected. So January, our instructor retired, and then instructor was going to retire. Then the term ended early. It was supposed to be 2 full terms. We were supposed to take pesticides, and then so we were supposed to take pesticides, and that didn't go well. And then I graduated trade school in March. And then March, I was working at Woodward Corner for a while. I was pushing carts, and then I wanted to look for a landscaping job. So I was working for a guy named Tinsley Landscape and Hardscape for a while, but that didn't work out because unfortunately, that didn't work out because, it wasn't going as well. He didn't have enough work. But I said, I'm going to try BellBot. BellBot was a mistake. And one thing I've learned about working in a landscaping company, you're going to deal with ignorant people, you're going to deal with high school dropouts, and people that have different mentalities. A lot of people there at BellBot, like a ton of people, smoked, they vaped, and they drank not on the job, but at the office. I'm like, and the owner was pretty nice, but I feel like sometimes my boss and my other coworkers are just getting crabby, and plus I have like a learning disability, which takes me a little bit longer to learn stuff. But that's one thing I've learned, is to work with different people and landscaping stuff. But I made new connections on the internet. And then I was, working a job at landscaping, and then until I left the landscaping industry, November, and then boom, I'm 22 years old. Basically what I did is I drove a lot. So basically I was actually practicing a lot driving. So I started practicing driving when I was 20 years old, or I think I was 19. I was like 19 years old. I was 20. I was 20 years old in 2024. So I learned how to drive a lot. I practiced a lot driving. And then in 2024, and also basically what I did when I was 22. So this is what I've done now. So I was waiting to just go back to Woodward Corner. Basically, it's like, when am I going to go back to Woodward Corner? So I had to go through emails, texts, and it just didn't go well. And my dad and I got in an argument here and there about, like, the emails and stuff. I'm like, this is frustrating. Like, we did not, like, my dad said, go check your emails to see if you got anything from Woodward. And I told him, no, I didn't. And it just got worse and worse. It was just, and then finally we're back to Woodward Corner. After about a month or 2 months, we finally came back, which is great. But yeah, man, I'm glad I came back. But yeah, I left Woodward Corner from Bellbot. And then another thing I will say, the first job I had was a job training at Hollywood Market, but my job trainer was not very friendly, and she was just crabby. And plus, I wasn't a big fan of Hollywood. And I just didn't want to work there because I just, I felt that, how you feel like this is not the right fit or not the right place when you go somewhere, you meet someone. I didn't think Hollywood was for me. And plus I was 18 years old, and plus my brain wasn't there, and plus I was a teenager, and I was just, getting out of high school. At the end of the day, no one's gonna like their first job. I was having a lot of behavior issues at home and yelling and stuff, and I had a lot of meltdowns, having meltdowns at home at 19, from 18 to 18 years old, 19 years old, and then 20, I was didn't have any episodes. 21, same thing. 22 years old, same thing. So one thing I've learned about being from a teenager to now an adult, I'm more mature. Even though I might have anxiety problems or get anxious, now that I've learned what I have learned about being from 18 to 22, like I said, I've gotten better about my emotions and my behavior, and even though I'm, just being me, and just getting closer to God and Jesus helped me a lot, But yeah, that's what I've learned about being from 18 to 22, and it's just, but yeah. But then one thing I've learned about, I don't care what people think about me. Yes, I might have talked to the wrong people on social media or tried to interact with the wrong people, but at the end of the day, I've learned to be myself. I learned to just chill and be humble and just live life. That's all I've learned. But at the end of the day, I don't care what you think about me. I don't, at the end of the day. But I've learned, just live your life, and yeah. So, that's what I'm trying to think. So I went to church, trade school. But yeah, I've learned just to be myself and just, get closer to God and, live my life the best way I can until it's my last day on earth, and just till Judgment Day. But yeah, that's one thing. And that's all I've learned about, being and then also another thing, yeah. Thank you for watching the video. Like and comment and share.